Did Jesus offer credible credentials to back up his divine claims? Well, I believe the evidence is overwhelming that he did. Now, I'll just mention quickly 4 categories of this confirming information. First, his miracles. Jesus said something very interesting in John chapter 10, verse 37. He said, "Don't believe me unless I do miracles of God." Years before the first Christmas, the prophet Isaiah said miracles would be one way the Messiah would authenticate himself. So Jesus performed many miraculous feats in broad daylight, oftentimes in front of skeptics. He demonstrated power over nature by walking on water. He demonstrated power over sickness by healing leprosy and blindness. He demonstrated power over death by raising Lazarus from the dead. In fact, Jesus' opponents never denied that he performed miracles. In fact, the ancient Jewish writings called the Talmud, even though they say negative things about Jesus, the Talmud concedes, admits that he dealt in the supernatural. Even Muhammad, the founder of Islam, admitted that Jesus performed the miraculous, and by the way, that Jesus also was born of a virgin.
Hey, is it a snack or a holy symbol?
A miracle or just a meal?
Is it a miracle or a mishap?
Whoa, what is
Is it a
that?
holy image or a bucket of filth?
We'll let you judge for yourself here on this Thursday morning.
Right here we have one of Jesus' eyes. Here's the other eye of Jesus. Here's his nose.
The second credential of Jesus is his character. John wrote in 1 John 3, verse 5, "In him is no sin." The third credential that Jesus offered was the way he fit the fingerprint of divine prophecy. You see, the Old Testament of the Bible contains dozens of specific ancient predictions or prophecies about the coming Messiah who would be sent by God to be the Savior of Israel and the world. In effect, what these prophecies did is they formed a fingerprint that only the Messiah would be able to match. For instance, it was predicted hundreds of years in advance that the Messiah would be born of a virgin, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Judah, of the house of David. He would be born in Bethlehem. He would be rejected by the religious leaders. He would be killed at a specific time in history, predicted hundreds of years in advance. In fact, the Old Testament of the Bible contains a description of Jesus Christ being crucified hundreds of years before crucifixion was even implemented as a method of execution by the Romans. I used to think that, well, maybe a way to explain this is that Jesus intentionally maneuvered his life in such a way as to, pretend to fulfill these predictions and fool people into thinking he's the Messiah. Luke 24:44, he said, all things which were written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled. And they were, and they are being fulfilled only in him. Finally, his fourth credential, and I say this for last because this is the most convincing one of all. The ultimate authentication of his claim to being the Son of God is that he was resurrected from the dead. Now, I started as a real skeptic about the resurrection of Jesus. I've been a newspaper reporter. I've seen dead bodies. I've never seen a dead body come back to life. Third strand of evidence is the early nature of these resurrection accounts. I mentioned earlier this creed of the early church that's preserved in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 3 and following, that affirms the resurrection, lists the names of specific eyewitnesses, including skeptics, and it's been dated back as early as 24 months after the event. And the beliefs that make up that creed go right back to the cross itself. It would be unprecedented anywhere in the history of the world for legend to grow up that quickly and wipe out a solid core of historical truth.
The Mormons teach that everyone must stand at the final judgment before Joseph Smith, the Mormon Jesus, and Elohim. The Mormons thank God for Joseph Smith, who claimed that he had done more for us than any other man, including Jesus Christ. The Mormons believe that he died as a martyr, shed his blood for us.